What up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. You know it, and I know it. Your favorite car podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Off the Record, as always. But, asterisk, very important, we're getting rid of the app code. It's been problematic. People have been having problems using the code on the Off the Record app. Instead, you want to support your favorite podcast when you use Off the Record, the best legal aid service. Legal aid service is probably not the right term. Service to help connect you with a lawyer to fight your tickets and win 97% of the time. That's Off the Record. Go to offtherecord.com/TST. They'll get you all legal services, 10% off when you book through us, right? Offtherecord.com/TST. They're the best, but ditch the code on the app. You can use the app once you make an account, right? The app is still good, but there's something about the software and the code through the app, it's causing problems. So it's gone, banished, right? Like your tickets, like the points off your record. Offtherecord.com/TST. Love them. All right, folks, on this episode, we are back in studio with a legend. Chip Foose is here. This guy, if you're of our age, a guy in your 40s, you know who Chip Foose is. This guy has built hundreds and hundreds of cars. He has multiple Riddler Awards, multiple Grand National Roadster Show winner. Grand National Roadster Show called him the builder of the decade. The guy has 50 years almost fabricating cars because he was doing it when he was a kid at his dad's shop too. He was a co-host and the lead designer and fabricator on Overhaulin. His stories are amazing. He is, in fact, truly legendary, and it's a real privilege to have Chip Foose in studio for the Smoking Tire Podcast. Let's go. Just have Chip Foose do everything. Why even go anywhere else?
Yeah.
We're in. This is it.
Cool.
Chip Foose in studio.
Well, thanks for having me.
What a treat. I usually see you with stuff like SEMA, but now it's like a little jarring. Like you're here.
What was the first year you ever went to SEMA?
2007. You all long dominated it before.
What year were you born?
1981.
81. I graduated high school. 82.
I know, and you look way you look younger than me if you put us next to each other. So. Yeah, no, you've been around. You've had a hell of a career. 85 was the first year I went to SEMA. Whoa. 85?
And I've been every year since.
Wow. How many people were there in 85?
It was one room.
One hall? Wait, let me move this a little closer to you. Just one hall,
Just
right?
one hall.
And was it so you know how at SEMA there's like the new trendy stuff every year.
You know where Ford's booth used to be. Now I believe it's Toyota.
Yeah, which is like the deck, the balcony, right? Yeah.
Okay. Well, we had that balcony, and then the room that's just below it. That was what SEMA
the whole
was.
Show.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it started to build in the room behind after that.
And who were you there on behalf of? Were you with Coddington at that time?
No, at that time I worked at a company called Asha Corporation.
Okay.
And we designed and developed a product called JuroDisk.
Oh, GIRODISC.
Yeah, which is in every Jeep.
Yeah.
We developed that in Santa Barbara.
Oh, okay, cool.
At the company that I was at. And I knew Tony Thacker.
That name is familiar, but I can't place it.
He came over from England, and he worked with Gary Metters from Good Guys Association. So I met him through Good Guys. But he was working with SEMA at the time, and he did something called the Innovation Center. And he called me and said, hey, do you want to put your JuroDisk in the Innovation Center? So that's where I showed it.
And that
on
was
behalf of Asha.
That was like a 10 by 10 within SEMA?
No, it was about a 3 by 3.
Cubby.
In the Innovation Center, I put some illustrations, and we built a cutaway model so it showed you exactly what it did.
And for those who have absolutely no idea and have never heard of it, what did it do?
Okay, there's a star and a ring from a oil pump that was in the differential. And if both wheels are spinning at the same time, it does nothing. But if one wheel would break loose, then that star and ring would pump oil into a clutch pack, which would transfer power to the other wheel and lock it up, make it like a pause traction.
Yeah.
And then within 2 rotations of those wheels, if they start to spin at the same rate, then that oil would bleed off.
Huh.
So if you got into a slippery situation, the other wheel would take over, and you could find traction. And now it's in every Jeep. We ended up partnering with Dana, and they started building it. But right at that time is when I left Osher Corporation and went to work for Boyd Coddington.
Okay. So what was your, like, when you were working with to do the JuroDisk thing, like, what was your actual, like, role in that? Was it a small enough company that you were, like, directly involved in that?
We were a design group.
Okay.
And while we were there, my job was to come up with 4 patentable ideas every quarter and patent them.
Whoa.
Or prototype them. And one of the ideas
wow.
I came up with, your garage door remote.
Did you find that you had like 1 quarter worth of ideas and then you were like, Q2, you're like, oh shit, what do I do now?
We had a wish list from General Motors of things that they wished they could do.
Okay.
And working off that.
God, I'd love to see a list like that.
It was really cool.
I'd love to see a list like that from 1985 compared to a list like that today. In 1985, it would probably be like, I don't know, like add 100 horsepower to every vehicle. Now it's probably like, find out the shopping habits of everyone who buys our cars. It's probably like data tracking now.
They wanted
right?
seats that would fit a body so you could change them. So we developed, seats with airbags in them that would contour, which is used today.
Yeah.
One of the ideas I had was, your garage remote back in the 80s to open your car garage door.
Yeah.
In the car, it was just had a spring clip on it, and it sat on your visor.
Of course. Some still do.
So, yeah. So we developed the idea of integrating that button into the car.
Oh, HomeLink?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, the very first one that I did, I took your garage remote and put it inside of a box in the engine compartment. And in your jacuzzis, you have that pneumatic button.
Yeah,
You push the button
squeeze.
and the
Yeah,
little
yeah,
line-
yeah.
So I had two of those little pneumatic bellows, one in the box, and when you pushed it on your dash, it actually pushed your button in the box in the engine compartment.
Yeah.
And then,
Simple.
of course, we worked with it. We got the patent, and we sold that patent to Prince Corporation.
That's crazy. The HomeLink.
Prince
the
was-
first HomeLink was a pneumatic jacuzzi button. Oh, that's awesome.
So we sold that patent to Prince Corporation in Holland, Michigan.
Okay.
And I'd like to say I was just an employee.
Yeah.
But I loved what I was doing there. It was cool.
Well, if you have a wish list, oh man, that makes it so much better, doesn't it?
It was
But
pretty
you were
cool.
trained as a designer, right? Like art center and stuff. So this sounds like you were also doing engineering in a way, or were you just like the
It was
idea guy?
Well, I grew up
prototype?
with my dad as a fabricator and building hot rods.
Okay.
And then I ended up, I don't know if you've ever seen the big helmet car vehicles that the NFL uses to pull in.
Yeah.
Well, I designed that for Baker Sportronics. Wow. And then they made the little toys called the End Runner. NFL has them.
Isn't the helmet car, isn't that same joint that from like Major League that was the baseball?
He did the baseball ones also.
That's the same shit, right? Yeah.
Harry Bradley did the baseball ones back in the 70s. And I did the NFL football one.
Sweet.
That was in the 80s.
You should bring that back.
It was pretty fun, but when Alain Clanet, you remember the Clanet car?
Yeah.
Back in the 70s?
Yeah.
Well, Alain he had a company that was called Sternberger Clanet.
Okay.
And Mark Sternberger, who's an illustrator, you may have seen his work. He was always in Road and Track. Mm-hmm. Well, when I went to work for them, I went into the shop and I was working as a model builder and prototype stuff. Mark Nieper was Mark Sternberger's apprentice. When Mark Nieper left, he knew I could draw. He came in and said, "Hey, you might want to go talk to Mark."
So were you good at drawing when you were very young, or were you taught it in school?
I started drawing when I was 3 years old. My father could draw. And then at the age of 7, I met Alex Tremulous, who designed the Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
He worked for Auburn Court Duesenberg and was the head of the Thunderbird Studios through the 60s.
Do you seem like Alex must have been old, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, because you seem, the timelines don't seem to cross there. Just
I was
because you
just a
probably
kid,
look young, but yeah.
But he was friends with my dad.
I think Chip is a Highlander. I think Chip doesn't age. You look the same. I met you like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
You're ageless.
Alex didn't live far from my dad's shop, and he would come up just to see the projects, but he also would build these really cool futuristic vehicles out of wood, and he would bring them up and have my dad paint them.
Oh, that's
Later,
cool.
I started painting them. We were good friends. He's the one that wrote my letter of recommendation to Art Center. He taught me some stuff, how to draw. Like I said, I met him when I was 7.
Yeah.
Well, I had gone halfway through Art Center, and I left. I couldn't afford to stay. That's when I went to work for Alain Clanet and Mark Sternberger.
Okay.
Ended up being Mark's apprentice for 3 years. I was there for a total of 6 years. And Alon is the one that paid for me to go back to school and graduate.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
When you were at Art Center, because if you hang out in Southern California long enough, like all roads lead through Art Center pretty much. We've talked to Freeman and we've talked to a variety of other people who were there. Was anyone else? Were you contemporaries with other people at Art Center who went on to do great things?
Well, it's interesting. I started in '84. I left in '86. I went back in '89. Graduated in '90.
Okay.
So I met a lot of people in the industry. And I would say that Art Center was the door opener for me to, a lot of different things. And my senior project was the Plymouth Prowler.
Yeah.
That ended up going to production.
Yeah.
And
it was so you did the Hemisphear, which was my first exposure to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's enormous.
Yeah, and my model from Art Center is what became the.
That's what I'm saying. That's where I was going with that. This is crazy, right?
Yeah. To say that I designed the Prowler would be a slap in the face to the engineers and designers that did it at Chrysler.
Yeah.
But my model was the inspiration for it.
Which is amazing.
Well, thank you.
But wait, so the Hemisphere was built in 06, 07, something like that?
My model was done at Art Center in '90.
Yeah.
And it took me 17
That's
years.
what I was going to say.
We finished it in 2007.
Yeah, that was the first year I met you.
Okay.
When that car was being unveiled at SEMA, which I guess
we
was
had two of them.
07, right?
We had the green one and the black one.
The black one.
In the Chrysler booth.
Yeah, you let me sit in the black one and poke around. This was if you're just looking at a photo of it, it's stunningly beautiful.
Thank you.
What you can't see from the outside really is that it is a rear mid-engine vehicle, which makes it infinitely cooler than the Prowler, even though it kind of vaguely resembles a Prowler. There's the angle you want. That's the rear three-quarter from above with the velocity stacks. What motor was in this? It was a Hemi.
Well, it's interesting.
Folks, got to take a quick break because support is coming in hot from TrueWork. TrueWork is hell-bent on creating the most technical, high-performance workwear in the world. The TrueWork story begins in the Colorado mountains, where a trade worker knew there had to be a better solution than the wet, heavy gear that was weighing him down, and TrueWork was born. I can attest to this because I wore my TrueWork hoodie, technical hoodie they sent me, to air water, where it went from rain to hot to rain to hot to rain to hot. And I was able to keep the same garment on the whole time because every TrueWork product is engineered for maximum comfort, protection, and efficiency with minimum bulk or extra weight. Denim and cotton canvas have not changed forever, but TrueWork upgrades those traditional classics with the same fabrics worn by elite athletes. I love the pants they sent me. They're light. They keep me warm, but I don't sweat too much. The pockets are placed right. They got the zip pockets, so my phone's not coming out. It's windproof and waterproof. Fantastic pants. I really like them. And like I said, that hoodie they sent me seems to work for every single type of weather. Upgrade to TrueWork for a major change in the way you work. TrueWork, I realize this is workwear. That's what they're targeting. But I work in an office mostly, and I work in and out of cars. I'm not cutting down trees. And I think the clothes are great and comfortable. You don't have to have a trade job to wear these things. They're just really nice clothes, but they might make your work life better if you actually do those things. You can check out the full lineup and get 15% off your first order at truework.com/tire. That's 15% off at truewerk.com/tire. And support today is also coming in extra hot from CarGurus. You know CarGurus. You've heard of everyone's heard of CarGurus before. It's been around forever, right? Everyone's heard of it. But do you know what CarGurus actually does? It's not just a whole bunch of smart people that are gurus about cars. Otherwise, I would work there. It's not that, right? It's about confidence in purchasing. CarGurus is there to help you cut through the noise, showing you the best deals and in-depth vehicle details so you can feel confident about your car purchase. Because when it comes to your big deal, you deserve the best deal, right? Car shopping, it sometimes feels like it's the scam designed to make you second-guess yourself. Is this actually a good price? Am I making the right choice? Is this actually a good car? You don't have to wonder anymore. CarGurus has the most inventory of new and used cars so you can find the best deal. And with unbiased deal ratings, price drop alerts, and in-depth vehicle reviews, you'll make a decision you can feel great about, because a big deal should never feel like a big risk. It should be exciting, not exhausting. But between misleading prices and hidden fees, it can feel like a maze. CarGurus has got you. They rank the best deals, verify dealers, and make sure you never pay more than you should. Right? Right. CarGurus connects you with trusted dealerships when you're ready, ensuring a transparent and hassle-free buying experience. They've got over 4 million listings, more car listings than any other major online automotive marketplace in the U.S., so you can find the best deal. And CarGurus gives you the control to shop how you want to shop with the tools, information, and data-driven deal ratings you need. It's no wonder SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows that CarGurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. So, buy or sell your next car today with CarGurus at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com. Now, back to the program.
You know, I met a lot of people when I was at Art Center, including Tom Gale. That's who I did my final presentation to. And Tom became a friend, and I actually did several projects with him. But I told him that I was starting to build it, and he says, "What are you doing motor-wise?" And I said, "I really don't know yet." He said, "Can we do a Hemi in it?" He says, "I'm bringing back the old Hemi." So in 97, I got a call. He says, "I'm going to have some people call you." So Jim Bratton from Chrysler Mopar Performance called me, and he said, "What do you want in your car?" I said, "Well, I'm not really sure. What are you guys making?" He says, "We're going to put you in touch with Dick Landy, and you guys work it out, whatever you want." He says, "I don't care if you want a top fuel motor, that's what he'll build you."
Okay.
So Dick Landy called me. He says, "What are you doing?" And I explained to him what I was doing, and I said, "I'd like to be able to drive this car across country if I need to." And he says, "Okay." He says, "We're going to do an iron block, aluminum heads, and we'll reduce the size of the pulley, so because we're pushing that water all the way through the frame." Up to the front,
front radiator, rear engine, yeah.
So he told me exactly what he wanted to do, and he built my motor, which I ended up using. I have it sitting at the shop. It's dynoed from Dick Landy, 426 Hemi with aluminum heads.
What? Never went in the cars?
I've never used the motor.
What went in the cars?
Well, it turned out when I started to, I worked at Boyd's, and that's where I was originally building it. Then Boyd's went bankrupt, and it got put on the back burner. So then when I started again, I saw Tom Gale, and he says, and I said, "Yep, I'm getting on it." And he says, "Can we switch out that motor?" Because now they were bringing back their new Hemi.
Yeah.
And I said, "You don't want me to run the 426? He said, "Let's do the next generation, the new Hemi that is now in the
that's the Hemi that people are talking about now." So it was a 6.1, right? Was it a 6.1 or
originally 5? It was a 5.7. So that green car has the very first 6.2 that they made, which was a 392 Hemi.
Does it work?
Oh, it works great.
It does?
Yeah.
Whoa.
What does it use for a gearbox?
It's got the same gearbox that was in a Pantera.
Oh, okay. Is it the ZF 5-speed? Oh, okay, cool. What's it like to drive?
Fun.
Is it?
And then...
does it drive it's not normal, but does it drive like a normal car? Or do you have to, use a lot of brain power to actually drive it?
No, you don't need any brain power.
Really?
You
still have both?
Yeah.
You do?
Mm-hmm. Well, the black one's not mine. I own the green one.
Oh, okay. Who's got the black one?
The black one belonged to Don Voth, who has recently passed away, so the family's going to be selling it. But there was 5 of them done.
I thought, wasn't there a planned run of these things? The Foose coupes they became,
exactly.
right? Yeah. But what happened?
Well, originally they were all Hemispheres. And I own the trademark Hemisphear for clothing and toys and whatnot. I also owned it for cars. And, you have to renew your trademarks. Well, I accidentally let it lapse.
Yeah.
And the day that it lapsed, Chrysler took it from me.
No!
And they came back to me, and that's when we were building cars.
Yeah.
And Chrysler comes back and said, "We have your name now, but we're going to let you use it for a
fee.
for license free, but we want to own the name."
Okay.
And I said, "Well, I don't need to use it." They said, well, you're going to be selling Hemispheres. I said, no, I'll start selling Foose coupes and I'll put a Ford motor in it. Yeah. And they said, no, we don't want you to do that. We want you to use, and I said, no. I said, you're trying to strong arm me and you've taken my name.
Yeah.
So I will now build Foose coupes. Thank you.
That's crazy.
And that's what I did.
Wow.
So you did end up building, you both built 5, but there was a planned run for more,
there was
right?
3 of them with Hemi motors and 2 with Ford motors.
Oh, wow. Which drove better?
Yeah. But
I'm not saying.
So I had a design book, because I was really into hot rods when I grew up. I went to Hot August nights and stuff, so I
cool.
kind of knew who you were. And my parents got me a book of car design, I think in like late 90s, early 2000s. And this was in it.
Oh,
but
cool.
I remember in this book, which had, any countless number of 41 Willies and 32 Ford, like the stuff that was basically in vogue from like 1940 to the 90s. The styles, they changed a bit, more flames, more louvers, but it was all kind of the same. And then this shows up in the book, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Who made this? What is it? And it was completely different than anything else that was in any of those pages, which was so rad. And
It's hot rod, it's muscle car, and it's supercar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I really would like to have a go in that. Can I drive it?
Yeah, it's in Lincoln, Nebraska right now. It's on display at the Speedway Museum.
Is it?
Yeah.
What if I go to Lincoln, Nebraska? I got a friend in Lincoln.
We can do that. We're probably going to have to change the battery. It's been sitting there for
I'll bring a jump box.
Almost a year. Yeah, it's a fun car to drive.
Super cool.
That would be a nice circle if maybe for 2027, if 20 years later after meeting you and sitting in this, I actually get to drive it. It's so... Is it? I mean, it must be. For those who've never seen this car, I'm sorry for spending 20 minutes on this, but I care.
Thank you.
Does it? Is it when you drive it? Is it heavily rear biased, or does it? Because it's got a long nose and
no, it's got a 124-inch wheelbase, but it feels very agile and very light in the front. The steering is, it doesn't have power steering. But there's no weight on the front wheels. So
it must be. It must be easy.
But it looks like the engine is all the way in front of the rear axle.
It is in front. Yeah, it's mid.
Right.
Yeah, rear
so it
mid.
should be pretty good.
I bet that glass roof and engine cover was pricey.
Well, that's what Metal Crafters does. They have their own glass.
They do
tubing.
glass.
Yeah.
Man, that's a good
God for
one.
that.
That's a good one to have. Yeah. So okay, I could talk about this one car, but you've built. I mean, you've built hundreds, if not thousands, of cars. Do you have a number? Do you know how many cars you built?
No.
You don't even know.
Overhaulin alone was about 170.
That's a lot. Mm-hmm. But so what do you think? Do you think you've done 500 in your life? Think more than 500?
Well, as a kid working in my dad's shop, we would send 80 to 120 cars a month out of the body. We had a repair shop, crash shop, but we also built hot rods back there. So I mean, I built. It started at 3 years old. I was going to Gene Winfield's shop where my dad was the man. He was shop manager.
Wow, that's some deep car building.
It was pretty cool.
We're going back to the 40s now, right?
No, I'm
50s?
not that old.
No, but your dad, Gene Winfield. Gene Winfield was in 40s, right? Yeah.
So this is back in the 60s, 1966. I started going to Gene's shop with my dad on the weekends and watched what they were building.
That must have been
and
something.
And then the cool thing was, it was AMT was the name of the shop. And AMT is the plastic model kits that you can buy. So they were building the full-size cars that became the model kits.
Oh, wow.
So I'd watch my dad and the crew, and they'd build these cars, and then my dad would bring a model home that I got to build.
That's pretty
cool. Same thing.
That's cool.
And Hot Wheels was building, die-cast versions of the same cars that were being built.
So what gave you, I mean, I guess just watching your dad the whole time, but what gave you the artistic sort of eye of, because you have a style that you developed, but you can see it in some of your earlier work. Where did you see that sort of old style of hot rod and custom car building and go, here's where I want to change this?
My dad could draw. And I started drawing next to him when I was 3. And it was at about the age of 14 that my artwork was about equivalent to his. He never drew after that. He would just tell me, this is what I want to do, draw it. So I was drawing everything that we were building together. And then I started doing drawings for other people. Then I went halfway through Art Center. And then when I left Art Center, I went back and I was working with my dad And I started my own studio, and that's when I did the NFL helmet car, working on my own stuff. And then Alon Clenet saw the NFL helmet model that I built, asked me to start doing some work for him. So I was working with my dad, working in my own studio and working at Osha Corporation. And then Osha sent me, it was Sternberger Clenet became Osha Corporation.
Yeah.
And then they put me back through Art Center. I did the Hemisfear model, which was the Prowler for Chrysler. Boyd Coddington saw that model, asked me to start working for him. I worked for him for 2.5 years and then left Osha Corporation and went full-time with Boyd.
When Chrysler, when it takes your senior project and it becomes the PT Cruiser, are you compensated? Prowler, excuse me, not Cruiser, sorry. Are you compensated?
I was given $200 by Art Center for supplies while we did that project.
All right.
That's it.
Cool.
To be a student who got a car made by an OEM,
paid
you got
in
a $200 pencil bonus.
Cool.
But those projects and my show at Art Center, like I say, opened the doors and started a lot of relationships. Because then I've been involved with several show cars through the manufacturers that are just amazing projects.
Mm-hmm. How common is it for a student senior project to be built into, a concept, let alone metal, and sold at a dealership? Is it like a percentage if you could ballpark
I've known
it?
of other students that their vehicles became show cars.
Right.
But I don't know of any other students that their inspiration became a production car.
Wow. Yeah, that's got to be very rare, if not unique.
I would think so.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one on the CV.
Amazing.
I'm proud of that one.
Good one on the CV. Yeah.
Were you really excited when the Prowler project went forward? Did the kid
I had
in you?
no idea it would go forward. I'll tell you, that project was presented to us as students to design they called it trying to remember the term they used. They wanted us to design. Man, I can't think of what they called it.
Retro Future didn't exist yet.
No, it wasn't anything like that. It was a niche market vehicle.
Okay.
Create a niche market vehicle.
Okay.
And the example they gave us was a guy that likes to work out on an exercise bike.
Uh-huh.
Might work out on his bike, charge a battery that he could put in his car and get to and from work that day. And I was thinking at that time, well, that's something I don't believe I'll ever do. But that's what we had to do.
You're like, instead I could design the most useless car in the history of the automotive world. It doesn't carry anything. It doesn't keep you warm. It doesn't even have full body work.
I already knew it's going to be a lightweight, simple vehicle, and that's what we all started to design. Now, at that time, if you were drawing muscle cars or hot rods at Art Center, it was very frowned upon.
Yeah.
They got pretty upset that you're focusing on not the future of automobile design, but you're focusing on the past.
Sure.
So I did 2 separate presentations, and I didn't tell my teachers or any of the other students about it. I did a complete second presentation in my apartment and then put it up the day that Tom Gale came in for our presentation. So I had two lines of vehicles.
Whoa.
So Tom gets to, he's going through the room and interviewing all the students, and he gets to my wall, and he says, okay, I know what you're doing over here. That's our project. But what are you doing over here?
Yeah.
And I said, well, this is what you asked us to do, these niche market vehicles. So I've got 5 of them here. And the way I look at this project, just like these drawings and every drawing in this room, we're trying to create a niche market, and we're trying to create a customer. Mm-hmm. I said, what I'm doing over here is I'm catering to customers that exist. I said, there are thousands of people out there with their older muscle cars or hot rods. They're trying to put modern, mechanicals and drivetrain under them so they can enjoy them on a daily basis. I said, we have the advantage right now because it's not today's designer's fault that designers chose to go away from a great form and create something completely new. You can look at a Mustang and, the body changes. Every 3 or 4 years it becomes something else.
Yeah.
And, Cudas or Challengers. They had a really cool body, and then they just went away from something, or the whole vehicle went away. I said, we have the advantage right now to go back and draw from something that was great in the past and evolve it into something new.
And skip 40 years.
Right.
Basically, yeah.
But we can tug on the heartstrings of memories of a guy that remembers his grandfather having that or his dad having that and build something new and modern for them today. And Tom looked at me, he says, well, what do you want to build? And I said, well, I would love to build one of these. And I pointed to the hot rods and the muscle cars.
Yeah.
I had both in there. And I said, but I know you're going to want me to do one of these. He says, no, I want you to do the hot rod. So it was Tom Gale that, stood up for me and said, yes, build it. And like I say, he became a good friend to me
That's
for
so
many
cool.
years.
Yeah.
When Troy Trepanier and I built the Sniper, which was that 1953.
I remember that. Yeah, get a picture of the Trepanier Sniper. Yeah, it was a good car.
Yeah. So that project, Troy says, it'd be cool if we could put the Viper motor in it. Mm-hmm. So I went to Tom Gale with my drawings, and I said, is there any way we can get a V12 for this? And he says...
10.
The V10 for it. And he says, yeah. He says, let me get back to you. So he calls me 2 days later, and he says, here's the address, here's the phone number. I have a complete... Now, they hadn't released the coupe yet. This is in 19...
Oh, the GTS. This would have been like 94 maybe, right?
Well, this was in 97?
The GTS
96?
came out in 96.
Okay, yeah, this was probably in 95 or 96 then. He says, I have an engineering coupe. He says, you can have the whole car.
Dollar cars, yes.
Yeah. So we went and picked that up, and I used the entire drivetrain underneath it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's still, Vipers remain a good drivetrain donor for things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I've seen...
That was a fun car.
I've seen quite a few hot rods with full Viper powertrains.
Yeah.
You can't do the side pipes though. They sound like UPS trucks with the side pipes. You got to do. They sound so much better with the center exit rear exhaust like they did for like 2 years in the 90s.
Yeah.
You have won the Riddler Award 4 times.
I've been involved with 6 cars that have won.
Okay.
I've built 4 at my shop.
And you're Builder of the Decade, according to the Grand National Roadster Show. Do these types of accolades? Do you care about that kind of stuff, or is it only about the next project and the next customer?
What those mean to me is I did my job for my customers.
Mm-hmm. Are all those cars customer cars?
Yeah. Yep. I've never, campaigned one of my own cars.
You haven't? Would you?
I don't know.
Is
I
it
like building them? But
when you're building for a customer, do you enjoy working under the sort of creative constraints of what a customer wants, or would you rather? Do you try to steer the customer to what you think will work?
Well,
best?
my goal is to build their dream.
Right.
It's not my car; it's their car. But I still want to build something that I'm very proud of. And I have been extremely lucky and blessed that my customers have allowed me to build the cars that I've built.
Do they give you a lot of freedom based on your reputation for delivering
Usually.
quality?
Yeah, most of them do.
Just year, make, model, color, and then have fun kind of thing?
I've learned through the years to...
Wow. God damn, is that good looking?
Thank you.
Sorry. Zach keeps pulling up your cars. It's very distracting.
I have learned to not build a first build for somebody where they've never had a car built before.
Okay. What don't they know that they should know about having a car built?
What don't they know is that...
Yeah, like you
number
don't
one,
want, yeah.
This is expensive.
Okay.
I won't give a quote to build a car.
Yeah.
I ask them, give me the freedom to build the best car I can.
Okay.
And it's a time and materials, and we're just going to build something really, really cool. And like I say, I've been blessed to have had some customers allow me to do that.
Yeah.
But anymore, it's starting to get where I don't want to spend more than this. Okay, well, then we're not going to build the ultimate car. We're just going to build something really cool. And that's what's happened. But
I'm going to build you three-quarters of
what
the
I have
ultimate.
discovered,
Yeah.
what I've discovered working with people that it's their first car, they talk to their friends, and they know better than we do on what they need to do.
Yeah.
And so I get phone calls. We're already going down one path, and then we get a phone call. I talked to my friend, and he says I need to do this, so I want to do this.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes you can't
Or
talk
worse,
them
they
out.
read
So
the forums.
Well, and the other thing it does for me, it takes all the wind out of my sails to keep building something that I know is going to be really cool. And what I don't like to do is anything trendy.
Okay.
And what these people find when they're talking to their friends, they're trying to do what's most trendy right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to build something trendy because 4 or 5 years from now, somebody's going to look at that car and they know it was built 4 or 5 years ago. If you don't do trendy and you just do good design,
Yeah.
it's a timeless car.
Sure. It's got to be unavoidable on some level, wheels, things like that
Yeah,
change
well,
with tastes, right? It's like,
Whenever I'm building a car, I want to build a one-off wheel for that car, which may go into production with the wheel company later.
Yeah.
But I design a wheel for that car because I want it to be new on that car. And I'm looking at elements and details of the car, and that's where I pull something that inspires the wheel for that car.
yeah. Do you have a favorite genre? You know, you've done your traditional muscle car builds, you've done 50s stuff, you've done that sort of open front fender, hot rod, narrow nose look. I'm sure there's a better descriptor than I've just used for that stuff.
Teardrop bodies.
Teardrop, thank you. And then things that are just not even based on regular cars at all. Do you have a favorite style?
My favorite is to design from scratch.
Okay.
Yeah. The
Hemisphere, etc.
Hemisphere is from scratch. The Impression was from scratch. I did a lot of cars.
Which one is Impression? I'm not sure I remember that one.
Impression was based on a 36 Ford Roadster, but it was completely handmade.
Zach will find it very rapidly. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
That is quite good. Yeah.
and I've had the
Speedster
freedom
roof.
with car companies when we're building show cars. So
Do you like working with the OEM as a client?
yes,
You do?
yeah, yeah. My name doesn't go on it,
Yeah.
but the people that need to know where it came from.
It does it and it, you know, is it it's a satisfying thing to be able to
To have that freedom to
improve
build,
that product,
to take a big hunk of clay and start carving and shaping and make something come alive. It's a really cool feeling.
Do you work in clay?
Yeah.
You do? You like personally with your hands? Oh, amazing.
Yep.
Is that as zen a work day as I feel like
you
it
can
is?
you can change shapes and move things around really fast, and sketch modeling is fun to do in clay. That's where you're just generating ideas. You know, the ideas come from a piece of paper where you've sketched it, but as you're building it, you know, those final decisions of how tight is that radius, and is it this tall or is it this tall, or, you know, do we move the wheels? You can quickly cut something out and move a wheel and change it and look at it. And, you know, I'll work in clay. I like to work in quarter scale.
Okay, so it's like
Yeah,
that
about
big?
30 inches long.
30, okay.
Maybe.
And how long
25
will
or
it take
30.
you to do a model like that to where it looks like a car? Even if it's not, even if you want to change stuff, but to go from a square
I'll
to
just
a
work
car.
in the clay and maybe pull a mold off it and make a glass body or
Okay.
an epoxy body, and then cut that up and and then use that to make a section buck.
Oh, right,
But
I see.
You can do a clay model in 2 weeks.
Okay. And then just mold off it for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And full size, I've done the same thing.
So what does your work day look like?
It's
Your average
different
day?
every
It's
day.
got to be all over
Today
the place.
I drove
right?
to LA.
You're down in OC now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Where
Yep.
cars
Shops
get built.
in Huntington Beach, and I live in Orange.
Yeah, so that's where cars get built in this state. So it's like, are you bending metal anymore, or are you
Yeah, I
directing a team
still,
of guys? What are we doing every day?
I've got a team. I'm directing them, and I'm working with them. I'm on the drawing table. I'm welding stuff. I'm cutting. I'm, you know, whatever needs to be done. Lately, I've been working in foam and shaping an interior, and then I pull the foam out and fiberglass it and bondo it and get it straight and make all the gaps so we can wrap it in leather. And
When
yeah,
you're
it's-
doing interiors, I mean, it's such an important part of the car, but it's a totally different skill set from doing an exterior, right? Or is it not? Am I reading that wrong?
you're working inside, but it's yeah. I'm not finalizing everything in metal. Maybe sometimes we are, but the one that I'm working on right now, I'll rough things out of wood. I'll take some Bondo, put it on the wood and put foam there, and then shape the foam and then put fiberglass on the outside. If I need to haul the foam out, we're taking it out, but it's whatever needs to be done to build the shapes that need to be wrapped. That's what I'm doing.
I can picture what if you showed me a pro touring muscle car at a car show, I could probably go, that's an Overhaulin car. I know your style as applied to those Overhaulin cars. I saw probably every episode of that show with all the it was on for 6 years, 5-6 years, with all the reruns.
18 years.
Is it still 18 years?
We filmed for 18 years.
Wow, sorry for
with a few
undercounting
breaks
that.
in there.
I apologize.
That's all right.
But I've seen a lot, and I really know what your style looks like on those Overhaulin cars.
And my favorite part of Overhaulin was, the first 5 seasons where we did the cars in 8 days or less.
Where you actually did it for in the real timeline.
We had season 3. We built 29 cars in 9 months.
That's crazy.
We averaged finishing a car every 11 days, but we were also moving the studio because we'd go and build a car at one shop, finish a car, move the studio. Then we started doing 2 in one shop or 3 in one shop, but what we couldn't have because we were stealing the cars, working with their, either a wife or a husband or a brother or sister, we would steal the car, then take it to our shop, build the car. What we couldn't have is somebody knowing where Overhaulin was.
Yeah.
Take a car and they go, I bet Overhaulin's got it. That's why later, we started telling the people up front, you're on Overhaulin, we're going to build your car.
Yeah. It was probably more fun when you're stealing the cars.
That was my favorite
you
part.
have to hide once they're like, oh no, this isn't, it's not stolen, it's Overhaulin.
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a blast though. And that, I got to thank Bud Brutzman, the producer. And we did, if you remember, rides before that.
Yeah.
The pilot episode, I built that 2002 Thunderbird, the Speedbird. And I built that car in just under 7 weeks. I lost 27 pounds building that car. I was working around the clock, crazy. And when we got done, Bud came to me. He filmed the show, put it together, and sent the show to Discovery Channel. They loved it and wanted it to be a series. So Bud comes back to me and says, "What are we doing next?" I said, "I'm not."
Yeah.
You're going to sleep.
I
Yeah.
killed myself doing it. I said, but I have an idea for a show. Now, Monster Garage had just come out.
Yeah.
Where they were building something in a week.
Yeah.
And I said, rather than building something that performs a task, let's take somebody who owns a car, but they don't have the money or the means to build what they want. Let's build their dream and give it back to them at the end of the week.
It's a fantastic idea. It's all
Bud
feel
had
good.
the idea of let's steal the car and prank the owner. He wrote up a treatment, gave it to Discovery. They said, yeah, here's an order for 7 episodes right away.
It was
a good show.
It was a
really good
fun.
show. Chris Jacobs is a great guy. I see him a lot at all the stuff.
Chris brought the professionalism to the crew. He is such a great presenter.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. And so I didn't want to do it without him. And I thought
he's a good lead for that
He and I
type
are
of
the
thing.
only two that did every single episode of Overhaulin.
Where I sort of was meandering to, and I didn't get there because we were talking about Overhaulin, was most of those Overhaulin builds were done in a time period where this was you personally defined the style of what a car built in that era looks like. And you say you're not trendy, but I think you're a trend setter, which is a different thing.
Thank you.
So the stuff that you're working on now, to be honest, I haven't seen something you've built or sought it out intentionally in the last couple of years. What are you working on now that you're really passionate about?
Right now we've got a 62 Corvette in the shop.
Okay.
56 Chevy Post Car, 55 DeSoto, 33 Ford four-door sedan, a 57 Lincoln Continental.
Those are all right.
I've got a stretched 32 Ford Roadster that we're working on. But I just got a project in the shop that I have wanted to do for probably 35 years.
Which is?
And this is my dream job that I get to build now. Because back in the late 20s, early 30s, if you bought a Duesenberg, you bought a chassis. And then you took that to a coach builder. They would get a designer involved, and they built and designed and built your body that went on the Duesenberg chassis.
Mulliner Park Ward, Fingoni Fallaci, any of these crazy European places, or...
So Rob and Jeannie Hilardes bought a Duesenberg that was being restored in, I believe it was the late 60s, early 70s. The chassis was done, and they were waiting for the body to get out of the paint shop. Well, that paint shop burned.
Uh-oh.
Or it was in a shed, a storage shed or something. But the original body was destroyed. So it was a Ralston body, but it was gone.
There's photos, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But the owners chose a different body, and they built a reproduction body and finished the car that way.
Okay.
So we bought that car, or I should say, Rob and Jeannie bought that car. We have since pulled that body off, and I'm working on the drawings of what we're going to build now. But I'm trying to put myself back in the early 30s, maybe mid-30s. If I were a designer then and I had this chassis to work with, I want to keep the grille, and basically from the center of the front wheels forward, the fenders will still look like that Duesenberg fender. Because you could buy it with a grille, a hood side, fenders, running boards, and all the lights.
Okay.
And then you basically designed from the firewall to the back your body and did the interior. So I'm going to change the fenders and the body line. They had a skirt that covered, most Duesenbergs had a skirt that covered the frame. Mm-hmm. I want to bring the body down, the bottom of that rocker, give it a little shape, and make it a much more voluptuous-looking vehicle.
Body by Foose.
Yes. So
is it an S? Is it an S or an SJ?
This is a J model.
Is a J?
Yes.
Okay.
S was supercharged.
Yeah. We like those.
This is not a supercharged model, but
whatever. It's a Duesenberg.
We could add it.
You could add it. Could you get a Duesenberg supercharged?
I'll bet Randy Ema probably has one.
There must be one somewhere.
Randy
probably
Ema
costs
is
$300,000.
It's interesting. I built a 67 Chevy pickup, and I sold it to a friend of mine in Texas. And part of the deal is he had a J model engine, so I have a J model engine that I was going to put in another project of my own. Just happens to be J573 is my motor.
Okay.
And the car that Rob and Jeannie bought is J575.
No
so
way.
There was one car in between the two. So I have two J model engines sitting in my shop right now.
What can you do with a Duesenberg engine that's not put it in a Duesenberg?
I was going to build a stretched, I am building it now. It's a stretched 32 Ford Roadster. The doors are 6 inches longer and the hood is 22 inches longer. Wow. And I started building it and I put that motor in it, and it is so crammed in there. I have decided not to use it. So anybody out there
Stretch
that wants
a few more inches, maybe.
Anybody out there that's interested in a J model Duesenberg motor, I have one.
Yeah, what does it make? Like 200 horsepower, probably.
I don't even
right?
know what the horsepower was. I just thought it'd be cool to put it in there.
It is cool, for sure.
So I may put a Model A Duesenberg motor in it, which is about 8 inches shorter.
What do you think is your weirdest engine swap?
Weirdest engine swap?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I don't know.
You ever put like a turbine in something, or like anything like
no, but my
airplane engine, helicopter motor, anything like that?
My dad painted Andy Granatelli's turbine-powered Indy cars.
Oh, really?
Back in the 60s.
Then they race a half a race and get banned or something? Did they actually race any completed races?
There was some like little 25-cent piece that ended, but he was winning the race.
Yeah, he was riding a rocket. Yeah. That happens. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Would you?
But I have pictures of my dad painting those bodies.
Would you like to put some crazy engine into something and no one's giving you the opportunity? I mean, a Duesenberg motor in a 32 Ford is pretty good. Anything weirder than that?
No, I haven't done anything weirder than that. I've put a Lincoln Zephyr V12 in my P32.
That's
what
pretty
I called
cool.
That car. And that was, when the rat rods started becoming really, really popular, I had this idea. Let's put a Lincoln Zephyr V12 in a 32, but the inspiration for the whole car is, what if a World War II fighter pilot who used to fly a P-40 Warbird, now he's out of the war, and maybe it was late 40s, he decided to build his own hot rod and themed it after his P-40 Warbird. So I put a Lincoln Zephyr flathead in it, but dressed it to look like a Rolls-Royce Merlin motor that was in the P40.
That's pretty cool.
So that was the whole theme behind the car.
Yeah.
But I wanted to build something safe.
I'm into that.
And that's what I did.
Yeah. Now you just need to do the actual Rolls-Royce Merlin motor.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Right? Oh, there it
Yeah,
is.
there it is.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Even in spooling. Oh, yes. See that?
And now it's got the
Now
tiger's
that
mouth.
I think that is that what you would call a rat rod? I wouldn't call that a rat
It was
rod.
my
That's far
version.
too nice.
Your
It was
version, yeah.
my version of a rat rod.
This is as dirty as you'll allow yourself to have a car. Holy shit! Look how nice that engine
Wow, beautiful
Yeah.
engine.
is. Wow.
And those exhaust tips are just like what you would see on the
Yeah.
great.
on the P40. But
Damn, is
We
that
built them
still
all.
around?
yeah, that's actually at the Speedway Museum in Lincoln,
Oh, it
Nebraska.
is?
Also, I've got 6 of my cars back
Oh
there right
wow, we should go
You
just
could film 6 cars.
drive the whole collection. Yeah, see this is it's funny. Your version of a rat rod. Yeah, it's not dirty.
No, it's like an
and
airplane.
It's not patinaed, but is it bare aluminum or is it just painted silver?
Both. No, it's
Or
raw
steel-
metal and
metal,
raw
sorry.
aluminum.
Okay, it looks cool as hell. I
Thank
mean,
you.
it's a very very pretty car, and I get the World War II warplane
Thank you.
vibes.
Now those
Yeah.
seats actually
Whoa,
came
what
out
is
of,
that gauge cluster though? Can we talk
That's
about
a,
that?
That's a Zephyr because I ran the Zephyr motor. So I wanted to put the Zephyr dash in, and that's also a Lincoln
the
Zephyr.
steering wheel,
the
right?
steering wheel, which is the red acrylic.
Damn, that
and-
is cool as hell.
You can see that Lincoln Zephyr side shift transmission.
That's
And
cool.
I made the arm wrap around it, and it's got the same transparent red.
That might be a new contender for best shifter ever. How do you operate that
For
device?
people listening, it's like
just-
a bicycle
it's an
handle
H
going
pattern.
around.
It's
the,
literally an
center
H
stack.
pattern.
It just reaches.
That's-
Reverses up. First is down low, and then second and third.
Wow, it's giving the dash a reach around. That's so crazy.
It actually
That is
is,
the shifter. Like there's like a center vertical piece, and the shifter
Comes from
wraps
behind it.
around the back of it and comes around and says hello, like a snake checking you out from around a tree.
But you still
Weird.
got that first gear where you have your hand right on your girlfriend's knee in the seat.
That's awesome. Oh, that's very cool. I'm into that. Yeah.
Super cool.
So you have oh God, look at that nose. There's every angle. There's too many angles. So many louvers. Much warplane. And the wire wheels really work on that too.
Well, if you look at the back wheels, I took 2 of those. Those are 32 Ford wheels, 18-inch. But in the rear, I split 2 of them, cut the spokes out of one,
Oh.
and just smoothed the hoop out. Then I cut the hoop at the back side where it drops off. The other one I cut in front of the spokes, and then I welded them together. So I got a 2-inch wider rear.
Oh, cool.
And
You
so
just, it's just the just make it. It's I don't even. It's so far beyond my comprehension. When you're doing a 62 vet and you're working in fiberglass, how does
Yes.
that change your approach?
well, you don't have to hammer it.
True.
You grind it,
Yeah.
and then if you want to build a shape, you can put foam behind it, shape something, and then glass it in, glasses right back into the body, and then tear the foam out. So it's no different.
Yeah. I've seen we've had two C1 vets come through here
Yeah.
recently. It seems like they're having maybe a little bit of a resurgence.
Okay.
Cool cars.
That one
This one is a little of everything, it seems.
it's got a lot of little subtle modifications. Rear fenders are 2 inches wider and 1 inch taller. We molded the original headlight ring and then molded that into the body. And originally on the 62, because it had the new rear end, it has those fitted bumpers that are wraparound,
Yeah.
but the front bumper was into the body. So I cut the front bumper all out and made it look like it was a wraparound bumper as well.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah,
then-
these are like the front half is 50s and the back half is 60s. on
Right,
these
and
cars,
then it's interesting. The 61 and 2 has that real prominent peak on top of the fender in the rear.
Yeah.
Well, I got rid of that peak and softened it because the front fenders are soft.
Yeah.
To me, it always looked like one designer did the front and another designer did the back, which is just those 2 years between,
Yeah.
the
The
60
rounded bustle bum.
and the 63 is when all the design, the whole car was one design.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful car.
Yeah.
But I didn't like those peaks on the rear fender, so I got rid of those. And like I say, it's
That
a lot
front
of
bumper that I saw being fitted on there looked really particularly nice. This is Great stuff. How long, I mean, obviously every project is different and every car you're starting with is different, but is it usually like a year to do a car or 18 months?
It depends on the owner and their budget. How much do you want to put towards it every month?
Yeah.
And, do you want to keep putting money in or sometimes I get projects like this Corvette. The owner went through a divorce and money got tight, so it sat for a while. Now we're back on it.
Yeah. I know how it is. I have a car being restored right now, and their ability to fix it is right in line with my ability to pay for it. So I can relate to those customers. Yeah. Do we have some things from the Patreon? Yeah. Let's get those ready. But before we do, you want to plug Hemmings and your Hemmings gig?
Hemmings is pretty cool. I'm proud to be associated with them now. But I grew up with Hemmings in my dad's shop. Mm-hmm. And whenever we like to go camping, but my dad and I always took Hemmings and we'd look for stuff in there. We'd find parts or just, we'd get customers that came to us. And it's the same thing now. I'll get a customer that comes to me and he says, I want to build a 69 Z28 Camaro. Okay, grab Hemmings, find the car that's going to be the donor car for the project.
Sure.
Or whatever it is you're looking for. Hemmings, they've been around for 70 years. And there are over 30,000 cars available at any one time. So you can find what you want. It's one stop.
What are you doing with them?
What am I doing with them?
Yeah.
Well, I'm
telling people to go there for donor cars.
Or your dream car.
Or your dream car.
You don't have to cut it up and change it.
No, we've sold cars on Hemmings here before for our clients.
It might be exactly what you want, and you can find it there. But, I'm doing some social media work with them, and we're going to be doing a section in Hemmings called Chip's Picks, and I'm working with my son, and we're scrolling through their website, and we're finding cars and talking about it, and then we might talk about maybe 5 or 6 cars, and then I'll pick one of them, and I'll say, if I had that car, this is what I'll do.
Yeah, cool.
And I do a 5-minute sketch, just loose, might have some color in it, might not, but I'm having fun with them.
Cool. What is your son in the business with you?
My son graduated from Chapman University in film.
Nice.
He loves film and he loves music. But because he's in film, he's working with us and he's doing our social media.
Perfect. That is a good way to do it.
Along with Bud Brutzman, who is the producer of Rides and Overhaulin.
Oh, nice.
So he comes down and brings a film crew, and Brock works with them as well.
Perfect. Let's get to some of our fans' questions. Of course, if you want to ask questions for the show, if you want to watch the live stream, if you want to get the show before anybody else, if you want to get it without advertising, patreon.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast is where you do it. And in line for best username, Angle of the Dangle. Question for Chip. Do you prefer doing cars that are more commonly done or ones that are or oddball cars?
I like both.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, anything with 4 wheels. But if it's a car that's commonly done, then I want to look at it and I want to try to do something different that I haven't seen anybody do to make it stand out from everybody else.
When you're at your level where you can make or know somebody who makes pretty much anything, does doing it like if it's normal people who are buying an old car, the parts availability could be a consideration, but because you're effectively making so much, does it matter if if you can quote get parts for the car you're doing or not really?
You can pretty much find whatever you want, but we can also build whatever we want. Mm-hmm. And I would say that being a designer is also somewhat of a curse, because as a designer and somebody that I have an imagination, I can see how to change things. I can see a brand new car that's absolutely perfect, but something about it bothers me. That's where I say it's a curse, because every time I look at it, I just look at that one thing that I want to fix.
Yeah.
And that's what my customers allow me to do, is fix those things that bother me. And once I point it out to them, they'll bring a car. What do you think of this? It'd be fun to do, and what I'd love to do is this, this, and this. I'd like to change that and make this, and you explain it to them, and then they see it right away.
Yeah. We were just at Rick Hendrick's collection in North Carolina.
Did you go upstairs?
The
in his
guitar,
office?
the
Yeah.
guitar room,
The glass floor?
The guitar room was insane. Yeah, it was insane. But he had I think it was a 70 or 71 Camaro,
Okay.
second gen Camaro, that he had basically had somebody. I don't know if it might have been you, but I don't know somebody. Okay, basically restyle it as if it was a '62 Ferrari Lusso, with like
cool.
Ferrari louvers and Ferrari style bumpers. And it was amazing how much it looked like he was still a Camaro, but just with a few of those little details. It was amazing.
I'm kind of doing almost the same thing, but with a '69 Mustang right now.
Really?
Yeah.
And what would the details be from?
Kind of like a 275 GTB.
Interesting.
But it's still Mustang.
Yeah.
But like the louvers behind the windows.
Yeah.
I want that Ferrari feel.
Yeah. Well, that
and
could
then,
probably be
and then
pretty
the
cool.
rear, the taillight panel. Mm-hmm. Well, I've got a giant Winner's quick change in the back of this thing.
Okay.
And it's going to have a really cool MagnaFlow exhaust system. And I want to see that. So the way I'm going to do that is I'll build a real shallow trunk that'll go forward and tie into the floor. But the taillight panel will be built out of a perforated material like a supercar that you see today.
Like McLaren's doing with that metal, yeah.
And you'll be able to look through that. The taillights will be floating in that. There'll still be a bumper floating in front of it. And then I'll have some,
That's pretty kick-ass.
something kind of an arrow-styled pan underneath the bumper.
Yeah, like a diffuser.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you'll look through that mesh material and you're going to be able to see the exhaust, the springs,
That's
the
pretty cool.
coilovers,
Yeah.
and that quick change rear end hanging out back there.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. McLaren is doing that
So
right.
they didn't do that in the old Ferraris, but some of the new ones have that
Yeah.
same type of feel.
Tyler Barnett says, who are the young designers today that you're watching or feel excited about, or do you pay attention?
It's interesting. I pay attention to their cars, not necessarily them, because this industry is all about inspiring people. And so I never know where I'm going to be inspired or what's going to inspire me. But I go to the shows and I look at the cars or I look at the magazines. I think one of the best magazines out there right now is Wheel Hub.
I don't even know that magazine.
Yeah, it's a and they also have Truck Hub.
Okay.
And I think, but Wheel Hub is probably one of the best magazines. And you'll see some of the really cool stuff that's being built right
I'll
now.
have to check that out. Okay, cool.
Comes out of Texas.
All right. Also, Elon's ketamine dealer says, Chip, which of the big three do you think had the best design department during the 60s and 70s?
60s and 70s. I like a lot of the different cars, but a lot of those designers went from one studio to another.
Okay, so do you have a designer?
Peter Brock was pretty awesome. Harry Bradley.
You a Harley Earl
I
man?
would say Harley Earl. Yeah, he was earlier. And Larry Shinoda.
Shinoda Corvettes.
Yeah. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But if I don't really say that I'm one or the other. But a lot of people ask me, "Are you a Ford, Chrysler, or a Chevy guy?" Well, yeah, I'm all three.
Yeah.
In life, I've chosen one woman to spend the rest of my life with.
You don't have to do that with cars.
I'm going to get my hands on every car I can.
Having torn apart and put back together every car possible, which car is built either by far the best or by far the worst of that period?
Usually, if we go into the 30s and the 40s, the Fords are pretty much the top.
Okay.
Construction.
50s?
50s, I would still say I like the Fords, but also the Chevys were really getting strong then.
Is the Continental really the jam
in the
50s?
Yeah. I would give it to GM.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continental's really the best car in the world.
57
1957
Continental that we're doing right now
Yeah.
is pretty impressive.
We just saw one at a concours, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh man, these
I'm cutting
things."
this one up.
Are you?
Yeah, I cut the top off, so it's going to be a full-time roadster.
Oh, really?
But I'm leaving the stock windshield and the side glass, so eventually maybe
These were
one
never
day,
sold. These were all coupes, right? These were never
Yeah, they
sold
were all-
as convertibles, right?
Ford built one convertible.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it cool looking?
Yeah.
Can you look up
neat.
Continental Series
56,
Series 2?
57.
Series 1 or Series 2?
I think that's Series 1.
Continental convert. I think it's Series 1.
Yeah.
Continental Series
Yeah.
1 convertible. Like
And
to
they
see
lost
that.
money on every one of those
Yeah,
cars.
I love a car where they lose money. Those are my favorite kind of cars. That's how you know you're
Well,
getting
then
a good
you must
car.
like my cars.
Yeah.
I lose money building every one of them.
That's how you know it's a good car. If you go, GM,
See the blue one right
GM
there?
lost $55,000 a car doing
See
this.
the blue one in the lower left?
Yes,
That's
holy
the one that they
shit,
built.
look at that.
So I'm building something that looks
Well, that works exactly like
very
you
much
think it
like
would.
that. But I'm putting a Thunderbird wraparound rear seat in it, 64.
Yeah, cool.
And, of course, we're doing one-off wheels and dropping it down. And the headlights, to me, when you see that line coming out in that front fender, they just look like they're dead flat. And the hood has that beautiful lead-off that goes into that radius. So I've dropped the headlights 3/4 of an inch, or dropped them down a 1/2 inch, pulled them back 3/4 of an inch, and put that little radius in the top of the fender.
Oh, just to have a mirror that center line a little bit better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So drop those down, and then you see the line in the front fender, the line that goes above the front wheel well.
Yeah.
And it comes forward of the wheel lip.
Yes.
It's kind of in an odd position, so I've pulled that line back, so it's almost parallel
Tighter
to
on the wheel well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've pulled the bumpers back and narrowed them up. And
I bet you wouldn't notice any of this unless you parked two of them next to each other.
Exactly.
Either. That's crazy.
When I build a car, I don't want everybody to know exactly what I did to it.
Yeah.
I want people to walk up to my cars and say, I don't remember this car looking this nice.
Yeah.
And then they have to discover the differences.
Yeah.
Like, you almost don't see it, but that rear deck lid has that spare tire cover on it.
Uh-huh.
It's actually really tall.
Yeah.
And on a convertible, when you get rid of the top, it looks bigger than it is. So I've cut that down almost 3 inches.
There's one that looks like it was coach built. Yeah, and it's really, really tall.
Yeah, you can see the maroon one, how tall it is there.
Yeah. You don't even really, you're not even really going to put a spare tire in it anyway. Who
No.
cares how tall it is?
Yeah, it had the spare tire down below in the floor, and it stuck
I'd like
up
to
a
see
little
you
bit.
do a short wheelbase version of this that
That'd be
seats
fun,
two.
too. Yeah.
Remember what was his name? Murray? Who did the shortened Chrysler 300 and made it
Yes.
a roadster? Mm-hmm. That thing was kick ass.
Yeah.
I think you should shorten all 4-seat convertibles into roadsters.
There we go.
Yeah, that looks awesome. Yeah, that is going to be superb. I think that you can
actually,
get a great one of these for like
that
$55,000.
That car sold 2 years ago up in Monterey, and we hadn't started on this car yet, and I tried to talk the owner into buying this one. I said, this is the one you should buy and let me do it.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what do you think it's going to sell for? And I said, probably around 120.
Uh-huh. And how low were you?
It sold right around 120.
Oh,
but-
it did?
But he says, no, let's just, because
Well,
here's
that's not what this says. This says $296,500.
that may have been since then.
This was 2022, Monterey. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think it was that much.
Yeah. Big number.
Yeah, he didn't want to buy it, but I thought that would be the one to buy, and it needed work.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Concept car, a 50-year-old, 70-year-old concept car, of course, need work. Okay, Kat Furra says, what automaker has the most soulful design language across its current lineup? Does current automotive design bother you? Because they have to do things like pedestrian safety and impact zones and things like that make cars
Well,
not
it's
as
no
pretty.
longer the designer that's making the final decisions. There's a lot of engineers involved, and government is also saying you have to have this. So, and that all started to change in the late '60s. So
Unsafe at any speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love the cars that were, designed by the design team. And what I like doing is I call them the hard part cars, where they were chrome bumpers and pieces that you can actually restore and put back together. Then we got into plastics and injection molding and all this stuff. And so today, a car that's got a big rubber fascia, when that fascia is, the UV has taken advantage of it and destroyed it. Now you either have to build something new, but the old cars that you could re-chrome a bumper and hammer out a dent and then repaint it, those are the cars that I love doing, because those are also the cars that were designed by a design team.
Kind of ironic, given what you said about the vibe at Arts Center at the time when you were there that there's no future in doing these hot rods and these classic stuff, and we need to be looking to the future and designing that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, there's clearly such an obvious demand also for people that are doing the kind of thing you're doing, because new cars can't be customized in that way at all.
They can be. You know, I've done some, like when I did the 2002 Thunderbird. What we did is we pulled that front fascia off, and we epoxied the back side of the fascia and made it into a hard part. Mm-hmm. Then we started cutting it up and moving things, and then clay modeled over the top of that, and then pulled new molds and made epoxy parts, you know, with epoxy resins. And those are the pieces that I put on it. But that can be done.
Yeah.
It's not everything has to be done in metal. But, you know, it's all styling.
Is it not as rewarding to do it that way?
It's still rewarding.
Okay.
It's still, to me, every one of them, it's when you finish a project and you step back and it's that feeling of accomplishment that the whole team gets to step back and look at what they just accomplished. Mm-hmm. You know, that's why I do this.
Sure.
For that and that split second of when the owner sees his car for the first time, I want to see his reaction. So when he sees a car, I'm looking at him.
Yeah.
Or her. And it's funny, when we did Overhaulin, and we did the car, and Bud Brutzman, the producer, he says, okay, we're going to bring the owner in. I'm going to have you in this room, and then we're going to come get you and bring you out. I said, no.
Yeah.
I'm not going in that room. I'm going to stand behind the cameraman, and when he's zoomed in on his face, I'm going to be looking at the camera because I want to see his eyes and his reaction when he sees that car for the first time. Mm-hmm. That's what it was all about for me.
Yeah, I think that sort of big reveal moment, not that it was the only show doing that at the time, but like after that, there were so many things where it's like, well, we need a big reveal. We need a big reveal. Where there's got to be a reason for the audience to stick around for the. If it wasn't the big reveal, we got to find out if they made money or lose money. Right? We need to find out. Yeah. Did they do the flip? Did they get the build done in time for the customer? He's coming on Thursday.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I just did that about my car. You had to get it done for air water on Saturday, and I literally was that guy. Cool. Bad Gardener says, when I think of Foose design, I think of smooth, rounder edges, accentuating American muscle. When you look at modern cars, are you more drawn to European cars than American cars because of more organic shapes, such as McLarens and Bentleys, compared to Corvettes and Cadillacs? Is this something you've given thought to at all?
It's interesting. Like you just said Corvette, and I'm thinking Corvette. There's two cars in the history of car design that were evolutions. One's the Corvette, mm-hmm. and the most prime example is the 911.
Yeah.
Where it has just evolved and gotten better and better and better.
Yeah.
And I think Corvette, when they went to the C8, it took a pretty big jump. Mm-hmm. It's almost not an evolution anymore. It became its own animal again. And, when I think of today's cars, the Corvette is a pretty phenomenal car for the money.
Always has been.
But, yeah, exactly. But styling-wise, to me it's trying to mimic something European.
I think it is, but I think that part of GM's list of requirements prevent it from getting there.
Yeah.
Particularly the trunk requirement, which I don't hate that it has a big trunk. I think it's nice that it has a big trunk, honestly. I don't think customers would be happy with a Corvette that had a tiny trunk. Yeah. So I get it.
I would.
Huh?
I would. I'll take a smaller trunk.
Well, yeah, I mean, but they sort of fixed it with the Z06 a bit. They went with the center exhaust,
That's
and
true.
It does improve it with the center exhaust. It's less kind of like dumpy in the sides.
I did some stuff with Haggerty, and it was draw a car with Chip Foose. And they would just pick a car and give it to me and say, what would you do with this? And I was supposed to do a design critique. So they gave me the C8 Corvette, and I had to do something. And because it was such a major leap in design, I went back to the C7, and I designed a C8 with the styling cues of a C7.
Oh, okay.
So
did it work?
You can look at it if you want. Just put.
Is it a video or is there a final sketch? We'll
Just
figure it
put
out.
Chip Foose C8
Okay,
Haggerty.
Cool. I actually always thought, I kind of thought if you took a C8 and took the greenhouse and just moved the greenhouse to the rear where it would have been in a C7, you have kind of the same
I did
car.
a little bit of that in this.
Oh, wait, here we go.
Right there on the 23.
Oh, yeah. Fortunately, they've left it as a center card. That does look pretty cool, actually.
Thanks.
You know what this reminds me of? Especially the back half. Reminds me of some of those Pontiac concept cars from like 93, 94, like the Banshee. Remember the Banshee?
Yeah.
And all those GM cars that ended up in demolition,
to
man?
get to the final sketch.
We probably can't show the video.
No.
Because we will get
jump.
copyrighted,
jump
but
to-
we will jump
there
to
you
the...
There you go.
Yeah.
There's the top one. See, I don't like
See if you can pause on that frame, Zach. Yeah, there you go.
See how the top looks?
Yeah.
It's pulled way forward. I laid that way back, and then that vent in the rear quarter
Yeah.
is reminiscent of the C7.
You made the whole rear three-quarter of the car like a lot more aggressive, I think. And actually, you made the front much pointier, too. I don't think the pedestrian crash standards are going to hold up.
needs
Or not.
knees?
We'll see what
I think that
happens.
one may take out some shins, but
Yeah,
it
I
does
just-
look cool. You know
because
what?
to
You are
me,
good.
the-
You are
the
good at
side glass
driving
is
shiny
so-
stuff. Drawing
Thank you.
shiny shit, man. You
This-
can really make it shine.
The window in that thing looks so short to me. I was just trying to stretch that out.
Right.
Lighten that top a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, they
that
can't afford to
forward.
have two pieces of glass on the side, though. They're gonna have to make
that
this
was-
work with
So I
one
had to
piece
do
of glass.
something.
Yeah.
Some
No, it's
people
neat.
hated it. Other people loved it.
No, that's got a. That reminds me of something I might see from like touring or not Zagato, but one of the Italian design, like maybe a Castriota could have done something like that. Yeah, it's neat.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, that's cool. Someone else just asked, I want to see, go back. Jake Shores, great question. Any cars you did on Overhaulin that the owner wasn't happy and you had to change things after the show?
No, we were extremely lucky that people loved what we did. And there was only one episode that I did what I wanted to do to the vehicle without talking to the family. And I wasn't sure what the reaction was going to be. But we did an 84 El Camino.
Okay.
And the owner's daughter came in and she says, I just want it blue. It was brown. Well, what are we going to change? You know, any other? I just want it blue. That was the only input she gave me. And I was sitting at my drawing table. I did the drawing with her, and she was happy with the drawing. I just made it a blue El Camino, changed the wheels on it, and she left. And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, this is going to be the most boring episode of Overhaulin ever.
Yeah.
And I looked at the El Camino, and I was looking dead on at the front end, and I was looking at the headlights and the grill, and I thought, that's about the same proportion as a 67, 68 Camaro.
Okay.
So I went and got a tape measure, and I measured that, and I went and measured a Camaro, and that's it there.
God damn, does that look good?
This is
I
great.
put that whole Camaro front end on
That
it.
looks awesome. It looks so nice.
And then I did the same thing with the tailgate. I put the Camaro taillights
I seen
in it.
one of these with a GTO front end on it. It looked pretty cool too. Yeah, this
I
looks
also
great.
put the 67 Camaro dash in it.
Really?
And the bucket seats.
The seats look good.
But we did all of that metalwork in 3 days.
Wow.
And still
That's
finished
great.
that car.
Did they notice?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right, good.
But what I did, because of what I was doing, she said her father inherited this car from his father.
Oh, wow.
So I took the original front end and didn't restore it. But there you see the taillights.
Yeah.
I took the original front end off that El Camino and put it back to exactly the way it was and made a wall hanging out of it.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
For him to put in his garage. That's Dad's old
Yeah.
El Camino. This one's his. But I didn't talk to any of the family members about making the conversion. I just wanted to do it because I thought
This
it
is
would
rad.
be cool.
It is cool.
That's
You're
what
right.
I would want to do to one. So
Yeah.
I did it there.
I mean, it's,
and then I
it's
went with
risky, but you did the sentimental bit with the wall hanging. You got it in there. I think you thought we're very thoughtful in this. And this one has a wraparound rear windshield.
Yes.
That's from the.
That's
they all have
that's
that
stock. Yeah.
They all had a wraparound rear
Yeah.
windshield. I didn't know that.
But I got to do my Camaro El Camino.
That's pretty kick ass. That does look really good.
The El Camaro.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Go back, Zach. What else we got? We got time for one or two more. Then we can let Chip get out of here before traffic. Back to OC. I know how it is. Oh, Stupor Beetle. I know Chip is a vintage bicycle enthusiast. Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Any chance of him giving some pre-war Elgin or Coulson the Foose treatment like his cars? I assume those are bicycles.
You're going to see an episode of American Pickers.
Oh.
It's coming up very soon. Mike Wolf is a friend of mine, and we have a mutual friend that has a shop. And Mike had a Roadster in that shop, and he had instructed the shop to pull the wheels on the car off, and it had an old set of Lion hubcaps. And when I saw those in the shop, I said, "What are you doing with these?" And Tom Hardy has the shop in Georgia, and he says, "I got to sell those." I said, "What do you want for them?" He gave me a price, and I bought them. And Mike and I had become friends, and he calls me one day about probably 6 or 8 months after I had bought those hubcaps. And he says, "Dude," he says, "I didn't realize that the car I bought had so much history. I got to put those hubcaps back on the car. Can I buy them back from you?" I said, "Of course." He said, "What do you want for them?" I said, "I want an Elgin Bluebird."
Yeah.
Now, just 2 weeks ago, an Elgin Bluebird sold for $30,000.
Oh, shit.
All original ones.
Really?
Oh, they some of these old bikes
Is
have
that, I
just,
don't even know. Can you find a photo of an Elgin Bluebird, please? I don't even know. Would I know one if I saw it?
I have 5 of them now.
Fuck out of here. Really?
Yeah.
All right.
I've got about 150 bikes.
Oh,
Whoa.
yeah, this is a very iconic shaped
Yes.
bicycle. Okay, yeah, this is like
I told
this
him-
is like 50s Motorama. Oh, it's 35.
It's 36.
Oh, wow.
35 to
Oh, so it's full art deco.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is peak. This is some Y job era.
Yeah.
God damn, is that pretty? All yours look like that?
Yeah.
You
Well,
ride them?
Well, they're not all finished like this. I've got 2 all original ones, and then I've got parts for several other ones, and I have an absolutely over restored perfect one
Wow.
that I did.
For those of you doing the audio version of this, do yourself a favor and Google an Elgin Bluebird. This is Zach's looking at a Bonhams listing. Do we
Yeah.
have a sale price on this one? Bonhams says
That's a restored one, so it won't be as much.
this one says estimate 14 to 16,000. Yeah.
If it's an original paint bike, they go ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because they're only original once.
Of course.
And that's what the collectors really want.
Of course.
So I've got 2 original ones, and then I've got others.
Have you ever
but-
refused to work on a car because of in order to preserve its originality?
I really don't do restoration work because what I want to do is build what I call the bank of intellectual property.
Uh-huh.
When you design something and build it, you own the design. Now I can license that for models, die-cast, T-shirts, whatever.
Smart man.
My goal is to get paid 10 years from now for what I'm doing today.
That's a good move.
If you restore something, you only get paid for that day of work.
Oh, man.
And
There's your nugget right there. Make an Instagram reel out of that.
so,
That's the move. That's why Jay Leno doesn't do specials.
but now I had a friend of mine.
joke in a club for 30 years.
A friend of mine called me up and he says, "Hey, my brother-in-law wants to do some work on an old Dodge that he's got in his mom's garage." And I said, "Well, what is it?" He says, "I don't know." I said, "Well, you want me to come look at it?" He said, "Sure." So he gives me the address, and I drive over there, and he's just pushing this 1968 Charger out of the garage,
Okay.
and it's got a dual quad Hemi in it, all original red with white interior.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it, and he says, "I want to redo the whole thing and make it so I can enjoy it." I said, "No,
Yeah.
you're not going to do that to this car." I said, typically I won't do restoration, but I said, "Bring this one to my shop." And it hadn't run since the 80s, and this was probably 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't run since the 80s. I said, "Bring it over," and we went through everything mechanical, redid all the brakes, went through absolutely everything mechanical on the car, got everything working, and then I found some old lacquer that would match it, and there was a little bit of rust in 2 spots, so I fixed those spots for him, and then we put the dog dish hubcaps. It had some Kragers on it. Put it all back stock for him, and he enjoys it to this day. But it's an original paint,
Yeah.
68 dual quad Hemi charger.
But which is amazing. But you didn't then go? Let's just go find you another one, and we'll build this one. We'll build another one. Okay, cool. So once he had his,
so
his
I never want to destroy something of value.
Yeah.
So I helped him on that.
Sure.
Because he's a friend. So
Yeah,
I really don't do that type of work, but I can.
makes sense. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's Duesenbergs. Only if we're doing
Right, yeah.
Duesenbergs.
Chop those up.
Yeah, only if we're doing Duesenbergs.
And you can find one on Hemmings.
For sure. What are there, 35 of them ever made or something? How many Duesenbergs are there?
Right around 600.
Is there that many?
J models.
J's.
But yeah, there were.
I guess the SJs were very low double digits,
Duesenberg
right?
did a lot of race cars.
Right.
And then he had his A models and then the J models. And, they came out with that right at the
Depression.
the Depression.
Yeah.
And that's what really hurt him.
Yeah. Do you happen to look at a number?
I mean, they're currently 0 for sale on Hemmings. Just
Check out Auto Tempest
I just
for
wanted to
your
Google real quick.
Duesenbergs. Yeah.
Everybody should look, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone go look for Duesenbergs. Yeah. Let's get that search trending. Yeah. Man, so if you said your dream you ideally scratch build, clean sheet design, not based on a car.
Right.
When you do that, how do you determine what the structure of the car is going to be?
Well, you need to know what you're designing first. Mm-hmm. Is it a race car? Is it a muscle car? Is it a cruiser? Is it a truck? So you know what your purpose of the vehicle is first,
Right.
And then you build it. And then, is it going to be a daily driver? Is it going to be something that's, if it's a truck and we're going to be using this, or is this a show car that we want to be able to win every car show that we ever take it to, but then also be able to drive it across country?
Do you have a lot of folks that ask that you have to basically talk? I mean, you said you only like an experienced client, so maybe not. But people ask me about this kind of stuff all the time. They effectively want a race car on the street. You know what I mean? Like they want some giant blown alcohol motor or some crazy thing, and you go, What are you doing with it? Well, I'm driving to dinner, and I'm going to Cars and Coffee or whatever.
That 62 Corvette, that owner had to have 800-plus horsepower. And to me, it's ridiculous to build an absolutely beautiful show car and put that kind of horsepower that can actually tear that car apart.
Yeah.
I like building cruisers that you're not going to be twisting it because you're putting so much horsepower into it.
I mean, if you have a C1 Corvette and the pedal hits the floorboard with 800 horsepower, you are hitting the first tree.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not keeping that car on the road.
I'm putting myself in trouble.
I drove Art Morrison's personal C1, which I think was maybe 500 horsepower back in '09. Remember he got the Gran Turismo award?
Way more
I drove
power
that
than
car.
you need.
Dude, the thing went sideways in fourth gear. It was crazy.
Do you remember John Meehan had that 94 Corvette called Time Machine?
Yeah. Oh, man, I haven't heard about that in a while.
I drove that car.
Seriously?
On the street.
I think, was it the first tuner car that was over 1,000 horsepower on the street?
It was crazy, but so much fun to drive.
Oh my God! I haven't heard about this car in forever. This is the most '90s Corvette. Isn't that it right there?
I was it was blue when I drove it.
Isn't it second row on the right?
This is purple.
No,
that's
it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
This is a terrible. It's a photo of a magazine.
When we were doing Joe Rogan's CUDA at Troy Trepanier's place, John brought that car over, and Joe drove it, and I drove it. But I'm on the street in Illinois doing 205 miles an hour.
Oh, my God.
I drove one of those. I've driven some really neat Corvettes. I drove the Pratt & Miller C6 RS, which was really, really cool. And I drove an 87 Callaway twin turbo.
Those were cool too.
Which was really neat.
Yep.
But it redlined at 5,200 RPM. It was like a diesel. It was 550 pounds of torque. Apparently it did 180 miles an hour, but I don't know how the math worked on the revs. It was the weirdest thing.
Wow. Okay.
Has this Time Machine car just vanished into the ether?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that Troy repainted it. Ended up doing some really cool graphics on it.
Oh, cool.
But
somebody will dig it out and send it in.
So John took us out, and we go through cornfields, and we're driving way out in the middle of nowhere to take this car and have some fun with it. And he comes around the corner, we're driving down, and I said, "Ooh, there's a cop car." He says, "Yeah, this is my brother." Because what he did is when we got out to a certain T and we made a left turn, we drove about 10 miles down that road.
Yeah.
His brother with the cop car is blocking, so no traffic can come back down.
This is the move.
That way. Yeah.
We employ a similar strategy without the cops. We go, one of our favorite roads that we use for filming is a dead-end road.
Okay.
So you go to the
Which
end.
is what we were on.
Yeah, you go to the end, and then you work your way back. And that road is effectively cleared.
Yes.
We know there's nobody there.
But
That's very easy.
We put him there so nobody would come down it.
We don't have a cop, okay? What do you want us to do?
We're not going 205 also.
I don't have a Yeah, we're also not like maxing out.
What's amazing at 205 miles an hour is the elevation change that you feel in the street.
Oh, yeah. The road gets awfully up and
it's
down.
not flat.
I've done Silver State a couple times,
Oh, cool.
and you get that. Silver State's annoying. You can go faster just getting to Silver State than you can go during the event. We're going to let you go. I know you got a long drive and you're a busy man, but I really appreciate the time.
It was a pleasure. I really love your place here.
Thank you very much. If you ever want to abandon a car somewhere, I would encourage you to do it here.
How many can you take?
We can do 140 cars.
This man has a lot of cars.
The other store, we're going to be able to do more.
Yeah?
Down in South
And that's in
Bend.
Garden Grove?
In Gardena.
Or Gardena.
South Bend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's closer to me.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I need to store about 12 cars.
Talk to me. Talk to me after this. Are you going to Air Water? Are you into Porsche at all? Are you interested in that?
I like Porsches.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're pretty
It's
cool.
this weekend. Are you going to come?
Where's it at?
At the OC Convention Center.
Oh, that's real close.
Yeah. It's right by you.
Is this my invitation?
Come.
All right,
You
I'll
want to
see
take
you
it?
there.
Come.
We have extra
yeah,
tickets.
I
Right.
literally have extra tickets, but you can. You're Chip Foose. You can come to
Yeah,
anything.
also that.
I have 2 cars in the show. My pink
very cool.
Spider and my Taycan, which I just got back today. And I'm
Yeah, I'd like to
very
check it out.
excited.
You know what I would love to build is a 914.
Okay, I'd like to see a Foose 914.
Yeah, I'd like to do some really fun stuff to that.
Okay, this sounds like a plan.
I did a sketch a little while ago. It was kind of a mix of, and I did it for Hemmings on that. You know, we were looking at all the cars, and I looked at 914, and then I did a sketch of what if the designers of the 930 back in the 80s did a 914.
Okay. Are you sure they weren't the same people?
They're the same people, but that
so if you
that
took the
influence,
930 style,
the
applied
wraparound
to a
bumpers
914,
and,
okay,
the,
all right.
and the blisters and the fenders.
Is that drawing up on Hemmings? Can we see that somewhere?
I don't know if it's up yet or not.
Okay, but it
Might
will be. It's part of the thing. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
It was like I say, it was like a 5-10 minute sketch.
Yeah, and then we'll put 900
Really
horsepower
cool,
in it and drive it to Cars and Coffee.
Exactly.
That's what
But
we
it
do.
got me thinking. So now I'm looking at 914s in Hemmings.
I would like to see what you could do with a 914. I'd also like to see what you could do with a 928.
There you go.
Oh, whoa. You know what's funny? You've sort of made it look like a Toyota MR2 a little bit.
A bit of slant nose.
There's like some slant nose going on there, and
But I love those little turns, the marker lights on the 914.
yeah.
So from the side, it still looks like a 911.
I'll be honest. This drawing looks like you have done a bunch of acid and tried to draw a 914. It does look a little like it looks real crazy. I'd love to see you try to build this. It does look
It'd be
nuts.
fun to build.
It would be. It would be insane. What a treat! Thank you for stopping
Thank
by,
you.
Chip. I appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
Someone out there, please just write him a check and have him build you a car. That's really what we're going
I
for
want
here.
to do your 914 for you.
The 914. Yeah. Has anyone been dreaming of a 914 with pedigree? Let's go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chip, and thank everyone for listening. Thank you to our patrons for asking such good questions today, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.